Welcome to the Ventura County Children and Family Services training on virtual supervision. This training addresses recent policy that outlines expectations for virtual individual supervision and group supervision in the form of unit meetings. It also outlines the expectations for performance of this function in the field. Purpose. The purpose of this training is to address best practices for virtual individual supervision and group supervision. CFS understands that supervision can best be understood within 4 different and individual domains. The first domain is educational, which includes addressing knowledge, attitudes, and skills required to do the job. This may include bringing service delivery systems and their purpose within case management into discussions with caseworkers. This may also involve talking about the agency and its functions, or the functions of the court processes involving children and family services. Then there is supportive supervision. This includes promoting worker morale and job satisfaction while cultivating within staff a sense of professional identity, pride, and purpose. We can talk about social workers and their role with families, how much promise there is in developing relationships with families while encouraging healthy processes that help them not only finish their court case, but also actually function in a much more healthy manner. Next is administrative supervision, which covers ensuring adherence to agency policy and procedures, especially as they pertain to accountability and effectiveness with our work in the field. Lastly, there is clinical supervision. Clinical supervision has a critical role in developing the skills and capacities of workers. Clinical supervision encourages critical thinking and analytic skills, which often involve helping a worker understand the context of their own life and professional experiences as they relate to families they're working with. Sometimes it means understanding the application of psychological processes or theories a worker may have learned about in school, but now have real-world presentation in a different context in the field. The core practice model. Ventura County Children and Family Services strongly believes in and encourages California Child Welfare core practice model behaviors for all work with clients and between supervisees and their supervisors. The core practice model reflects the best practice standards in the field, and regardless of the setting, whether they occur virtually or in person, supervisors and workers are strongly encouraged to model these behaviors in their work. All supervision work, including telework, should incorporate the major components of the core practice model. These behaviors include foundational behaviors, which is about honest, open, accountable, and respectful communication between a supervisee and their supervisors. Client engagement behaviors, which include demonstration of authentic interest in connecting with family and their supports. Assessment behaviors, which include assessments of all work with the child, youth, young adult, and their family as they engage with the agency, as well as in initial and ongoing safety and risk assessments and permanency planning. Teaming behaviors, which include the important work of collaboratively building supportive teams between children, their families, community service providers, agency workers, and supervisors in order to help support the whole family during important events and decision-making processes. This also includes service planning and delivery behaviors, while working with the family and their team to create a plan that will focus on changing the behaviors that led to the circumstances that brought the family to the attention of the Child Welfare Agency in the first place. And finally, transition behaviors, which help to encourage work with the family as they prepare for casework changes in advance and to provide tools for managing placement changes, social worker changes, and other regular occurring changes that are expected to occur in a child welfare case. General guidelines. Children and Family Services believes that some basic structural components should be involved in a worker's planning on a daily basis in order to accomplish the goals they have in the workplace. Teleworking workers should check in at the beginning of their shift and check out at the end of their shift. Agency-issued cell phones should be configured to receive calls from the desk landline and ensure that outgoing messages are updated daily. Workers should be reminded to keep their Microsoft Outlook calendars current and be able to share access with their supervisor and other co-workers when needed in order to keep everybody abreast of what they're doing in the field. And finally, checking safe measures at least once a week will help workers who are working remotely best keep track of what their caseload needs come up. Over time, technology has developed, which has enabled child social workers and the supervisors to better communicate with each other and with clients. For real-time communication, consider video conferencing such as Zoom, FaceTime, or Skype, or a phone call or a text message. Sometimes there's a need to get an opinion or to run an idea by a supervisor. Using one of these simultaneous communication methods would be key. For other non-emergency communication needs, consider sending an email and making sure that you check your email box, your inbox, regularly to see that if an email you sent was responded to, that you've received the answer promptly. Finally, if there are any problems using technology, don't forget our great Technology Support Team, BTD, at 805-477-5400. Virtual unit meetings. Unit meetings have a long history as an essential function in the usual course of responsibilities assigned to a child welfare supervisor. Unit meetings are expected to be a safe space around which workers can talk about policy, program expectations, daily casework, and in a group setting where they support each other. Fortunately, with the help of technology, virtual unit meetings can be just as effective and important to use as in-person meetings have always been. The agency's expectation is that unit meetings will occur at least once a week. We understand schedules will change in the virtual environment, and so there is some flexibility to be given to the supervisor and some discretion as to when the meetings will occur. Unit meetings are expected to be group-focused, informative, and directed towards cascading updated policies and expectations. The overarching purpose of the virtual unit meeting, just as its in-person meeting counterpart, is to connect the daily casework practices with agency objectives, including the We Believe statements, SOP practices, and core practice model themes. Virtual individual supervision. Some of the most important decision-making and learning occurs in the relationship between a supervisor and a supervisee in the agency. Supervisors at CFS are expected to conduct formal individual supervision with their workers regularly. However, the frequency of these individual supervision meetings is dependent on the worker's needs and left up to the discretion of the supervisor. Some points to take into consideration include developing a communication plan with a specific amount or frequency and a specific type or mode of communication to occur. Regular discussions around court report due dates and important hearing dates that might be upcoming, planned or needed children and family team meetings, required staffing meetings for case planning purposes, and other case or referral specific activities. Virtual supervision topics to consider. Whether in individual supervision or unit meetings, in either the in-person or virtual format, there are regular topics that should be brought up in supervision in general. Some examples include use of SOP questions. This could be a great icebreaker or a great ending to a meeting. It's a great way to talk about what's working well, perhaps some successes with casework, or a new learning opportunity that presented itself, or worries, things that are generally concerning to an individual worker or to several people in the unit, and next steps. What are the actual practical, real-world next steps to take in a particular situation? Another great topic to bring up will be teaming opportunities. Is there a new agency that could be brought in to work with a particular family that has specific needs that otherwise aren't addressed? Are there particular family members or other particular community members that can be brought into a network to help create change and help create awareness? Supervision is also a great place to talk about safety precautions, whether they be safety precautions that we use and worried about a pandemic, or they're safety precautions that we might consider for family members and clients. And also equally important is confidentiality. We should be discussing confidentiality in supervision as well. One of the most useful ways to use supervision is to coach and instruct on specific programs and policies. This could be something that a new worker needs to learn. It could be something such as a new policy involving something similar to virtual supervision that workers who've been in the field for a while haven't learned very much about. Using supervision to create a coaching and instructing environment that's open, honest, and effective can be very important. Supervision can also be used as a check-in to see where cases are at, to track where a caseload is going, to see how a worker's keeping track of particular indicators. You can use things like structured decision-making. You can use some of the other tools like SAFE measures as well. Time management, resource needs, and of course, self-care. It's always important to talk about self-care in both an individual and group context whenever possible. This job is challenging.
What families experience often doesn't stay confined within that family or in that process. Workers need to have a place where they can reflect on what they need to care for themselves and also develop their own work-life balance.
Children and Family Services Administration would like to thank you for taking an interest in our virtual supervision policy. This policy can be found in its entirety at our PolicyTech web portal. Supervision, whether in person, virtual, between an individual social worker and the supervisor, or amongst a group in a unit meeting setting, remains one of the most critical processes Children and Family Services engages in. Your participation in supervision assures that children, their families, and our staff of the agency continue to provide the highest level of professional service possible.